Upgrades.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS television review of the Hulu on FX. It's very confusing because it's not FX, it's Hulu on FX, meaning you won't see this on FX, but you'll see this on Hulu. Class of 09, episode 3. This episode is called Thank You for Not Driving. It's Lucas here with Samuel Leggett, aka SEL0320. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did that time.
Supercell. I didn't say Supercell. That's what I messed up at. That's what I messed up at. See, here at JVS, lots of people have nicknames. I don't have one, but we have a lot of people with nicknames. We Jedi Mike, Ronan. I got to give Jorge a nickname that is not going to get us canceled off of this review. But let's quickly jump into episode 3 of Class of 09. And this episode starts in the past, as it starts with a simple J-turn, a driving test. All I'm going to ask you is, where at in the season will we see this play dividends at? Because they're not showing it for no reason.
I think the concept of her, he basically kind of commented and said, you're too stiff. For you to do this, you have to be out of control. And we never seen her out of control. We've never seen her angry. We've never seen her do too much. We've always seen her do just enough. And I think when whatever goes down in present day goes down, that's when that's going to have to come out. I mean, it may come out later in the future too, because she's real close emotionally to this, more than she ever has been. I think she's emotionally vulnerable because of certain circumstances now.
I think that's the key part here, is you said it perfectly, the losing control aspect of it, because we clearly see that was part of her issue. And maybe this is what down the line makes her such a good undercover agent, is that ability to lose control, because that's highly important here. Then next up, we go to the present, and we go to Teo attempting to hunt down Mark, as we saw at the end of last episode, that Mark got away after Teo attempted to get him on his compound. He got away in a moving truck, I should say. And here we see Teo on a hunt. There's not much here to talk about here, because all we know here is that Teo grabs a suspect. And that pays dividends later on in this episode when he grabs that suspect and what happens with that suspect. But next up is in the future we go to, and this is where Poet visits Hour at her farm. And this is where she lets her know everything that happened.
Yep.
Between their past dealings with one another, we kind of get a glimpse of it here. We get a glimpse of that Amos stole our system. So that's giving us more of a glimpse on why he's so involved in this, because we still haven't really got much of a story on him yet here. Yeah. So what did you think about this quick future shot of them two together, and about Hour saying Poet sided with Amos, and that's what caused a rift in their relationship?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was weird. At first, it was kind of jarring because I felt like it was a lot of exposition all at once. But they pay it off later progressionally with the past, the future, and then some other things. But when she was saying all that, I was like, okay, that lines up. And that kind of makes sense why Teo was trying to kind of get closer to her. But the interesting thing, well, I guess we'll talk about in a little bit, is like her insinuating her getting too close to it.
Yeah.
Why she betrayed her, because she was going to make it intimate, because it was intimate that it was revealed that I love you. And it's kind of like, it's weird because this woman is out here secluded.
Yep.
And like, even before she was going in, like her eye literally went out because she's off the grid for real.
Yeah, completely.
And when, Poet met you know, the daughter and met, I guess it's from his wife now. The wife was kind of looking at Poet like, yeah, I know who you are.
But
And
let me ask a question here. Do you think was that a wife or a caregiver?
I think it was a wife, or well, you know, I don't know because some of the stuff she
Because
did later in the episode was suspect. But
how about say because the only reason I'm asking is because when we get to the present, we're gonna see something with our that possibly tells us who that little girl's father is.
right,
So if that's the case, because I thought so too at first that maybe that was like her new wife or things like that. But what happened if that's not the case here? And that is just a care. It could be just a caregiver. It's hard because they don't really go into detail there, and
yeah,
I think they don't because it's not of importance. But all I'll say is, by the end of this episode, if that's her wife, I think she would have had an issue with our staying with Poet afterwards at her place. So that's why I thought, yeah, that can't
So,
possibly
so
be
I
her
think the
wife.
reason why I say I don't think it's a caregiver because she seemed real stank about Poet. It seemed like you know, like you with somebody and you know about somebody's past relationship.
Uh-huh.
That means that person has repeatedly talked about how they did them wrong, and
Yep.
then there's a threat there. And it was kind of like the way she
Uh-huh.
said it. I was like, I don't know. I think it's just her boo right now, but maybe she's not married. I don't know. It was real weird.
It just I don't want to harp on it too much, but it just leaves questions on who that person was. Because at this point, because I didn't really get the best of picture of it, I'm not even sure if that wasn't ours mom that we saw in the clip in the present. I think they left it that way
You know
because
what?
they
That's
just wanted it to be
a
vague
didn't even think
of
about that.
exactly who that possibly could have been.
Yeah,
But if you go back and look at it, that woman's extremely old,
yeah,
and she kind of does resemble ours mom in the opening clip.
yeah. It's a
So I
mystery, you
think
guys.
that
Y'all let us
yeah,
know who it
yeah, just let
is.
us know. I'm going with ours mom because that's what it really, really looks like. It looks like that was her mom or a caregiver. That's why I say caregiver. It's one of the two. But after that, we go back to the past with them, which is kind of interesting here as we get a past view of ours showing Poet the system. And this is where we get the first name of it, which was A Better Tomorrow was the name of the system.
Yep.
And then we see why Lennox sent Poet in to find out more about this because he is terrified of what ours intentions are. What did you think about the way he characterized her? Show the profile that they worked up on our because one, all of them went to the academy together, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden his thoughts of her have completely changed. What did you think about just that? The way he broke her down in this short scene.
It's a weird conflict of interest. Like I get
Mhm.
preservation of life and the organization as a whole, but he's
Yeah.
obviously been shown to not be trusted. And you know, the fact is that he kind of labeled her sexual ambiguity about whether or
Uh-huh.
not like she liked women or men as a personification of how the system could be tailored to her ambition so that it would single out certain things. But I was kind of just like, that really ain't right. I get it, but it's more so
Uh-huh.
about who's the person that's going to be the person pulling the strings.
Behind
Like
the shit. Yeah.
because it was like she immediately, even when she went into the to the meeting and it was kind of identifying everything. I knew for a fact there, when you go to a board meeting or you go to a meeting, somebody's already made up in their mind, but they're
Yeah.
trying to make all these excuses. That's
Mhm.
what that whole entire scene felt like. But it was more so the fact that she labeled it. She's like, look, this is really just a library. It's to make us more efficient and
Yep.
for us to identify things quicker, which led me to believe that he might be hiding something because either one or two
Mm.
things doesn't make sense. One, he's jealous because he knows this woman has feelings for the girl he's already with. Or two, which makes more sense, he's using this to hide something or cover something up. And I'm not saying that he's behind, he's a mole or anything. I'm not saying that. But it seems really suspect that he would try to prolong this and using Poet to identify, really kind of to sabotage the whole entire thing, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
It feels real intentional and really suspect to me. I'm more now suspicious of him because I don't really
Yeah.
understand what his intentions are. Um, but yeah, that was the interesting thing about that
I
for me.
mean, but keep in mind here, at this point, I think Lennox is the associate executive something something director of the FBI here.
Yeah.
I want to say that their issue with risk management could be the reason why they're worrying about this system. And the
Mm,
only reason I say that is if you pay attention to, he's concerned about the system and what our could have possibly done to manipulate it. He brings up her sexuality. I automatically thought that just meant the point that he understood that she wanted to be with Poet,
right.
and jealousy played a portion into it. The other issue is, and it's pointed out later on, before Teo uses it, the way all those agents react to that system. Like
Right.
all of them are thinking this system is going to replace us.
Oh
Like,
man, the irony of
like
this.
yeah, exactly. They automatically think the system's going to replace us. Because remember, right before Teo used it, when he took it out the package, that's what the guy said. You're going to use this? They're going to use this to replace all of us. So it felt like she came up with a system that immediately terrified them because they didn't understand what that system was. And we see that in the next scene with Iowa as she's with the brass of the FBI,
Yep.
explaining what this system is. Does a beautiful job of explaining that this is nothing but a database. It is equivalent to what Batman has in a Batcave.
Yeah.
It's a database of everything humanly possible that allows you to then use it to formulate exactly what could happen.
Yep.
But it still needs a human behind it to actually work it.
Yeah.
What did you think about their reaction to it and then them informing her that, we're going to shut this system down?
Yeah, I mean, I think one dude in the back was kind of being a jerk just because she's a woman and he already kind of caught wind of what it was. But it's more so about the person that implanted Poet there. Like he was dragging the
Yeah.
meeting the entire time. I was like, you've already made up in your mind. You can tell it through every single
Yeah.
excuse he was using because she's identifying things. She's not losing her cool. She's keeping it composed. And like he was trying to insinuate it was a situation like Person of Interest. If any of you guys seen the show Person of Interest,
Yeah.
project was part of. With that, it was a computer system that was sentient. Like it came and identified and gave the names. But this has to be man controlled. It's not that. It could be, but it wasn't that. And so if he would have went down the route of like, what if somebody is like, can you identify like this will never, gain sentience or somebody won't abuse it? Like if it is in the FBI's hand and it's locked up and lock and key, then it can be an asset. But he didn't want to hear any of that. And it was like
Mhm.
he just completely derailed the whole entire meeting. I think she did a great job presenting it, identifying it. And I think some people were really kind of listening in, but he just shattered any idea of this working possibly. And she knew it. By the end of the meeting, she
Yeah.
knew he was about to say the next words like, we can't do this.
Exactly, exactly. Next up, I'm gonna combine the next things all together because all of it involves Teo and his pursuit of Mark. So it only makes sense to like add this all together because I am not separating this and talk point to point. It's absolutely pointless to do that. First, we have Teo with the suspect, and we see that the questioning is not going good, which leads Teo to actually pull out the system from our. And you see him at first here trying to make the decision if he should use it.
Yep.
And we see that that's when the other FBI agent said, "Why would you use the system?
Yeah.
Washington sent it to us to take over us and end our jobs." The following scene is Teo leaving for work and his wife being attacked by a hit squad. And right after she's attacked by the hit squad, we get Teo's whole mind has changed about what to do with this system. And he decides at this point, I need to use this system to find out more information here. So before we get to actually what happened with the system, what did you think about this initial setup from the questioning, from them saying we've been doing this for, I think they said 2 days, and
Mm-hmm.
we got nothing out of him?
Mm-hmm.
Their opinion about our system to the attack on his wife and the way he completely flipped afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating because Teo, I mean, as much as we kind of know he's willing to do whatever it takes,
Mm-hmm.
like he's still in his early stages of that. So he's kind of like, all right, I'll suck it up again, do it the right way. You know, maybe
Yeah.
somebody might get killed over this, but this is the thing. And it was so fascinating how they set that scene. That was a well shot
Uh-huh.
scene. When
Yeah.
Teo was kind of like kissing his wife was like she was going to an agency herself. They didn't really kind of go into that, but
Yeah.
when he was
Mm-hmm.
kind of rolling out the driveway, he kept looking back. He was kind of assessing. It's like, when you got that feeling like something ain't right.
Something's about to, yeah.
And he didn't want to leave, but he knew he had to get to work as soon as he left out. And they shot it so well. Because as soon as he left out, there was this truck that kind of interwoven. And of course, they ambushed her as she was coming out. But then when they were shooting at the glass, I was like, dog, bulletproof glass. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what she was gonna do because I was kind of like, look, she could stay in there, call the police, or she could use that freaking car. And sure enough, she used that joint, killed him, and went out and got the gas turned AK and was ready. But it was when he had that conversation with her, and he kind of
Uh-huh.
was holding it together and stuff. But eventually, he was kept on saying like, I can quit, I can quit, I can quit. She was like, I don't want you to quit. And he was like, what's the point of this if I can't protect you? She was like, no, that's not your job. Like, no, that is my only job. And so then it goes back to his trauma of going back to, okay, I need to take matters into my own hands because obviously you're not, nobody's getting it. So bet I'm about to take
Yeah.
care of it because now they're coming for me. And that's my world. So
Yeah.
as soon as that happened, he was like, he almost got pissed at the cop. He was like, bruh, I need to use this. Move out my way. And it makes sense. It fits his MO. It fits him perfectly. What's the scary thing that I'm realizing is if she dies, and I don't know if she will or not, but if she died or something else happened to her, bro, he's gonna dive full into this. He's diving completely into it because I think even the cop was like, once we open this box, you're not gonna be able to go back. You're not gonna be able to close it. And it's that's literally every single scene after that point. He's had it on him.
Mm-hmm. And that was the best setup here is him using this system. As first he says, I need to reach out, basically need to reach out to Howard so I know exactly what to do with this. After she gives him the instructions, what did you think about? And I'm only still focusing here on Teo for a minute because I want to focus on what he
Yeah.
does with this machine. What did you think about the way he used it and the way that machine processed information? Because we saw here, unlike what we see at the beginning in the first episode, when we see Teo at the screen, Teo's not really interacting with the system at all. Here, Howard is completely interacting with the system to get information out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fascinating because there was a couple different things going on. Because with him, we know for a fact he's a whole pal. Like he's not to be rivaled with. Like he understands the criminal mind, just
Mhm.
how his mind works naturally. And so he was kind of like, this man is gonna eventually start to crack because
Yeah.
the other cops were like, how long has he been sitting there using this thing? It's like
Mhm.
6 hours, and I was like, okay, there's a reason why he's doing this. He's waiting for
Yeah.
him to do something, whether it's a tick, whether it's like writing something down. And sure enough, he was making like a maze, and they used that technology. And I was kind of like, it was the perfect symbiotic moment. Like he used his understanding of the criminal mind to know for a fact eventually this man's going to break, and then they used
Mhm.
this perfectly to identify pinpointed things where his mind may be going, which is fascinating because
Mhm.
there's actual truth to that. Like there's certain things that
Yeah.
people can do right out, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what this is. That's why psychologists use like ink plots, like what's going on in my person's mind mentally and emotionally.
Mhm.
So I thought it was from a technological standpoint, I was geeking out. I was like, this is amazing. But it also shows how efficient he is and how he's gonna be able to eventually be what he becomes in the future. Less than shoot what 10 years, 9 years? I don't
So
even know
does it
that.
show how efficient he is or how efficient the system is?
So
Because every
my opinion, I think it's both because as much as our is saying that, yeah, we can use this for you know, a database, it also, I feel like to make it be structurally efficient, I think that somebody has to hone in on one side of it, and then you have to let the system take the rest of it. I think it was a two-hand fold, because if, say, Poet had went in there, right? Poet is great. She's great at getting people to work the system and whatnot, but he already threw that guy off guard by telling him, "Oh no, your guys are dead." And he knew from that moment right there, as soon as he said it, it was intentional. It wasn't him having an emotional reaction. He knew that that guy was gonna be like, "Crap, I gotta start thinking about how to be careful with this." Whereas I think Poet would have just kind of sat there, try to talk to him, befriend him. I think that it would be very different, and that's why I
Yeah.
love their
I
differences.
think it's. I think it had nothing. I can honestly say here, to me, it had nothing to do with Teo because he wasn't the person operating the system. The only
Mm,
thing Teo was doing with the system was recording him,
mm-hmm,
and from the recording of him, the system calculates what it needs to calculate. But then everything else was run by Hour.
mm-hmm.
That's why we get the conversation between her and Poet. So
Poet talking about,
Teo is just there as the Teo is just there as the recording device.
yeah,
So I think that again, that was the fear of the system is I can just put a cop in the room, put a camera on him, and let the system take over. As long as someone's by the system operating what needs to be done, that's the most important part of it all. So that's
mhm.
why the cop was amazed because keep in mind, they said they were in there for 6 hours and Teo didn't say a word.
True,
If you're in there for 6 hours, the reason you're in there that long, the camera's reading all of his movements.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, so this. And even down to when he said, "Hey, what do we got?" An hour had to read off to him. It's either this, or this.
mm-hmm.
At that point, it then allows Teo to guess. Okay,
I know
it must
exactly
be
what you're
this.
talking about. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but the system has to read everything first. So I think her initial point of saying it's a database is that database is just taking information. Once it
Yeah.
takes in that information, it'll give you possibilities. It's up to the person on the other end to relay,
Turn
hey, these are
what
the
it actually.
possibilities that is kicking out.
Yeah.
It's one of these things. And then you have to ask that person to see their reaction to one of the things. So Teo didn't come into play with the system until she named what it was, and he had to see the guy's reaction to
Yeah.
what he was saying there. Like other than that, it's completely the entire system here. But let's go quickly back to the confrontation in the present between Poet and Hour as she arrives at Hour's engagement party.
Sheesh.
And we see just how I'm just going to say how uncomfortable Hour's parents are
Oh yeah.
around Poet.
Mm-hmm.
But Hour is completely comfortable around Poet. And we see here her telling her, I know that you were sent to spy on me. And I'm glad it was you that
Yeah.
was sent to spy on me here. What'd you think about this confrontation for them right here? And then later on, when we get it back at the headquarters when Taylor's using the machine, and her Poet telling Hour, you don't have permission to use this device. And Hour like, we don't have time for that. And Poet basically says, I'm the person in charge here. And I'm telling you, you don't have permission to use this device. What did you think about those two parallels that they show between their relationship?
Yeah, it's still the issue that Poet has. She's got a control issue.
Yeah,
For her, it's more about like my way. She makes a judgment call of what's good and what's bad, what's right,
yeah,
what's wrong. And she is, as much as she loves and cares about people and wants the best for people, but she's also making a preconceived notion about what is right for this or what is wrong
yeah,
for that. And that's why, you know, I was so upset. She's like, so, oh, it was your decision. Because this isn't a rational one. This is something that you
yep.
want. And
Mhm.
that's a place of control. Now, going back to the party, and I agree with you, the parents, the parents definitely are uncomfortable around Poet. And which was weird. The weird thing about the whole wedding, it felt like it was an arranged wedding, to be honest with you. Because even the
Mhm.
guy that's supposed to be married her, he barely said 2 words. Like he let Poet and her just kind of dance. Like it wasn't. Matter of fact, he wasn't even there for seconds, and I was like, why are you marrying this dude? Like, is it to make sure that the FBI doesn't call you out? Is it to appease your parents? Is it all the above? Like, it felt like it was a whole orchestrated thing, which is so
Yeah.
interesting. But the more interesting thing is that our she was like, look, I did my due diligence. I'm about to get married. Like, y'all ain't gonna take Poet away from me now. Like,
Yeah.
she's my body. And Poet in that moment, which is weird because I think at this time Poet is dating old dude. Like, she's all the way in it as well. Like, they are very
Oh no, they
close.
did by this point her and Lennox would have broken up.
You're right. That's right. Because they went
Yeah.
through that transition because of what he did. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. But it's kind of like they're very, very comfortable with each other. But when
Yeah.
our basically kind of was like, I'm glad it was you because it's somebody that I know for a fact that I fully trust, regardless of your thoughts on it or not. Like, I know for a fact you're gonna have the best interest for me. But what she didn't anticipate, and I think it goes back and pulls to what she says about her in the future. She's like, the reason why you pulled the trigger on this because you knew for a fact that I love you and you made it a judgment call based off of that, which is not the
Yeah.
best thing to do. You didn't think about
No.
what was the best case scenario. You thought about how it would look and
Yeah.
what that meant. And yeah, that's an issue with Poet. Period. That's her flaw. That's her only flaw, really.
But it's a huge one to have
Yeah.
because that shows that you can make opinions and formulate them and follow through with them based strictly off your feelings.
Yeah.
And that's something that we kind of see that at the beginning of the episode. Again, they don't stray too far away from those personalities we saw in the first episode. And the way Poet was sticking up when she was in the asylum for the people, it was strictly based off of her emotion.
Yeah.
Even if what she said didn't make sense, her emotions drove her to make those decisions there.
Yep.
But next up is Teo catching up to Mark. As after the system tells them exactly where to look in a truck from this trucking company, then the system tracks all the trucks from trucking company leading. Now, the weird part is, Our said this is a database. I'm assuming they switched to a completely different system to track that truck because then that would not be a database at that point. It's a completely different type of system that it end up tracking the truck to track down Mark. We see Mark in the van right before he's caught. We see him burn blueprints.
Again.
Still don't know what they're for, but we see him burn blueprints and then him get arrested. I don't think it's much here to talk about, except for what do you think those blueprints are for?
Oh, it's definitely their big FBI event that happens in 2023. Whatever that mass killing is, it's tied to what he was looking at before. My
Mhm.
whole concern is how he got the freaking blueprints. Who gave him the blueprints? Now, he covers this track so well. I don't know if he caught wind that they were coming, but he did
Yeah,
that real quick. He got that.
gunfire. Heard that gunfire in the truck.
Yeah.
They were lighting that truck up.
Oh, they
He
did.
heard
They
that.
did light everybody up.
Yeah. And he heard that and was like, "Yep, time to burn it." But he ended up getting the blueprints at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
At the end of the last episode, they go over the blueprints. So he knew
Yep.
the plan,
Yep.
but he knew if he got caught with the plan, it would ruin
It was
whatever they had.
that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So he decided then to burn it. Then next up, we go back to the future. And to me, the most interesting scene of this episode here. And this is Poet and Hour as they're driving, just talking about their past, talking about everything else. One, her calling a Tesla a classic. It's more than enough issues here because that car technically would only be 10 years old. That's not a classic in anybody's stretch of imagination. But what's interesting here is as they're talking, an hour says, your car is communicating with the police.
All right.
That blew my mind the moment they said your car is communicating with the police. The next up is the police telling her, we've taken over your car. Put away your weapon. They clearly knew exactly who they were talking to here.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that she was an agent. They knew who it was. They knew who was in the car.
Mhm.
And then she said they aren't supposed to do this without probable cause. And our says the probable cause is you're actually driving.
Right.
What did you think about that conversation, this entire setup, and what we see at the end when the cops are pulling them over? That Tail is monitoring
Watching the
everything.
whole freaking thing, bro. Yeah, now that well, from a technological standpoint, I was geeking out. I was like, this is freaking nuts. This is like the sum of all fears from a
Yeah.
technological standpoint, because I mean, we know that Teslas, can a lot of cars can actually self-park. Teslas can drive themselves. And I think one of the things that we know from a technological standpoint, maybe when cars start to drive themselves, people are less prone to get in accidents and causes
Mhm.
of death from accidents. So it makes sense. The thing about when they were talking about being a classic, what I came to in my head was like, you say you take the Galaxy Note, right, or like the iPhone 10. Those came out like less than, I don't know, 5 years ago, if not a little bit more than that. But a lot of people consider those to be classics. And so if it's kind of like a 10-year jump, there's no way to know how much technologically things have jumped. So it makes sense from a technological standpoint, the way they said that if they start treating cars like phones, then yeah. But it was when she said that when I was like, they're looking and seeing everything that's going on, and our kind of was just nonchalant about it, and Poet was like, "Wait, there's nothing for them to look at me. Yeah, what am I doing?" She's like, "You're driving," and I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Boy, you should have thought about that, bro. like you doing a lot of stuff. Like the last time when old dude gave him the key card, I was like,
Mm.
you're not being really conspicuous about that." And I was like, they gotta know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, they're playing you for something, and they're looking for something as well. But it was the fact that they pulled him over to the side, and the screen kind of had possible suspect or something like that on
Yeah.
Poet's
On Tails. Yeah.
on his screen looking at Poet, and I was like, suspect for what? Like, what are we assessing here? Is
Mhm.
it that the system is worried that Poet is going to be the cause of demise of the system, or that she's going to possibly kill somebody? And the fact that it was just a procedure, like put your
Yeah.
gun in the glove compartment, get your hands off the steering wheel, we'll reel you in, they'll check over, and then they gave him the okay. I was surprised that Tail didn't detain her. I think that because he didn't detain her, it's like a rod and reel. You giving it a little bit of slack so you can pull it in later. Like, I don't know what the game is here, but they're trying to use Poet to get something they need. I just don't
Yeah.
know. I really don't.
Like this whole scene reminded me of two films. Demolition Man, because this was part of the setup of Demolition Man, because people did not drive cars and they
Yeah.
could take over cars. And iRobot, because it's
Yes.
the
Yes.
exact same thing.
Yeah.
Where it was a future where they can just do this and pull you over, and they'll pull you over by pulling your car over. Like this was, I think, this was the first time that Poet completely questioned everything.
Hmm.
Because when she says they don't have probable cause, the system shouldn't be able to do this.
Right.
I think that was the first trigger for her. Like something's not right here,
Yeah.
because this system has way too much power to be able to do this.
Right.
And why would the probable cause be me driving? Like it brings up so many questions here, and so many questions that get answered in the next scene as we
Mhm.
see that they're driving to, it looks like a abandoned facility where the system was at.
Mhm.
And as they walk into there, Poet uses the card that Amos gave her.
Yep.
And on this card, they see a bunch of code coming across the screen, and this is where the big reveal, possibly of the season, happens. Of Poet asking Our, what's the difference between what you created and what I'm seeing now?
Right.
And Our tells her, what I created was a database that needed a human mind. What you're seeing here now is a system operating and thinking by itself
Right.
with no one else involved here. And then next up, we see Amos' face pop up on the screen and tell Poet, the issue is we have a system that is naming suspects, detaining suspects, and doing all the work with no human control behind it. And he's letting them know that system is corrupt. She needs to investigate and find out exactly what Teo knows. What did you think about this whole setup here of this system? Because we kind of brought it up in the first episode when we said, hey, it's kind of like Minority Report.
Yep.
We just didn't know from the first episode the system was not known to actually operate like Minority Report. It wasn't supposed to just pick a suspect out the sky, which helps also explain why that senator was so mad about the system being able to pick, because we didn't put the pieces together until this scene here. So what did you think about this scene here and their reaction to finding out exactly what the system is and finally letting the audiences in of letting them know this is not the system that our created?
Yeah, I mean, civil liberties out the door, like privacy's out the door. Like, there's no conditions to a self-serving system that says
Yeah.
not only I see everything you've done, but I know based on your actions what you're probably gonna do. So I'm gonna take that out of the question. Like, that concept alone has always been
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. But to know that it's already happening and nobody knows about it
Yep.
and nobody's checking it, there may, I mean, honestly, Ramos died because the system wanted him to die. Like, it wasn't, I don't even know if it was necessarily Teo, but I mean, Teo
Yeah.
may have allowed it, but the system's like, yeah, nah, bro, like he's got to go. And it makes more sense the first episode why all those
Mm-hmm.
clues were there, but you didn't know what it was, and then the key card went in, showed everything you needed to show. But my thing is that Ramos literally was willing to give up his life on the bet that Poet was going to take this situation to the hole, which
Yeah.
it tells me that there are sides of Poet that we still haven't seen yet from her
Yep.
capability, because he wouldn't just needlessly do that like that. He knows for a fact she's got it in her to do this, but it's just terrifying because that means that the system is looking at her as suspect because of what she
It's
knows,
thinking for itself. Yep.
what's about to go down. And I don't know. I'm curious to see. I guess I understand why Teo is allowing it, but I don't know, man. Like, there's still so many different questions that I have about how would the system not protect itself? And why would Teo allow a system
Keep in
that
mind then.
obviously is already corrupt, not even just by him, but by anything, to allow it to continue to judge on its own? Like, that's
So
dangerous.
what do you think the part of Amos saying? He didn't say stop Teo. He said you need to find out what Teo knows.
Mm,
What is the possibility that he
mm.
think he knows a portion of it, but he has the slightest idea about how strong this system is?
It's either one or two things. Either he completely knows and he's trying to be in the dark about it,
Hmm.
or he doesn't know. I'm more inclined to the former because he did protect Poet. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
he's smart enough to understand certain things that others wouldn't. And I can believe he'd be like, okay, I need to allow Poet to have enough string to get what she needs, but I got to play a card a certain kind of way. I don't really know because I'm still
Yeah.
jumbled as to the perception of how I feel about Teo. Um, because I mean, the whole Ramos thing, he was emotionless about it. But
You
we'll
think
see.
they're purposely leaving that blank because it helps drag the audience in to find out
Yeah.
exactly what's going on? Because technically, all we know, the Teo we know the most is present Teo.
Yep.
We don't know what gets him to the point of even accepting this system
Right.
as strongly as he does, because we haven't gotten to the big event yet and what possible losses that he suffers that makes him that way.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he fully understands how that system works.
Nah. It's gonna be interesting. It makes me really
Yeah,
excited to hit that break point because I
yeah.
feel like it's about to be in the next 2 episodes. I don't even know how many episodes total we have this season.
I want to say it's eight, six or eight episodes total. I can't remember which one it is though. 6 or 8 episodes total. But next up, we go to the present time. Teo has arrested Mark here behind the glass as Teo goes into question Mark. It's two things that happen here. One, after Mark is captured, and Teo says they want me to come and question him. You see his wife's reaction to him saying that.
Why is it
Why
gotta
does it
be
have to be you?
right?
Very weird that that would be the question here that she would ask here. Next up, after he gets in there to question Mark, Mark is very comfortable where he is. Mark said, like, this is exactly where I need to have a front row seat when you find out the news.
Yeah.
What did you just think about one, his wife's reaction to him having a question, and then Mark telling Teo that and Teo's reaction to it?
Yeah. I mean, I think my wife would have said the same thing. Like, okay, I'm safe. You got him. You stayed behind. Like, let's sort
Mm-hmm.
of work it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, this man obviously is targeting me because of you. So why you got to be involved? You know? And I get it from that perspective. But when Mark said that, I was like, Paul Dano, the Batman, like this that's
Yeah,
where my mind went. I'm like, okay, it's about to go down, and he knew like, okay, this is how I'm gonna mess this whole entire system up. I just don't know what the end resolve is or what the goal is. But yeah, I immediately went to the Riddler being trapped in Arkham and wanting to be there. Like I was
yeah.
like, yo, this is not gonna be good. One thing I did want to bring up though is when Hour and Poet met with the old trainer, and the old trainer kind of saw them. She kind of looked like, I thought y'all were gonna be together. That's kind of look she kind of gave, but she said something that I thought was fascinating. She said, y'all were my best class. It was a pleasure of my career for y'all's
But
class.
yeah, I, I always piece together that would be the point of their class. From the
Just
remember I said at the beginning when Gabriel said, I've had a good class, I have a great class, but I've never had an exceptional class.
yeah, yeah.
And
It
I mean, one, you get the director of the FBI coming out of your class, you get an associate director of the FBI coming out of your class. Your class is clearly exceptional.
yeah. Yeah, it's just fascinating to see the progression going back. I didn't think a show like this could work going between three different time zones, but they write it in a way that it makes it so intriguing, and they explain a
Mhm.
lot in one motion, which is cool. But yeah,
And the final scene of the episode is Poet and Hour arriving back at Poet's place. One, I found it very weird that Hour said, I'm surprised you still have this place. Because is it me or did it sound like that was a place that they shared together
oh, it definitely
and then she left? Yeah,
did.
because that's the first thing I thought. But next up is Poet telling her she's tired. And then we see Poet attempting to get sleep and Hour coming in to comfort her as Poet breaks down.
Yep.
What did you think led to the Poet's breakdown? And we could kind of guess it's to her finding out that this system is crooked and she doesn't know what to do next because we understand her and Teo have a relationship with one another.
Yeah.
So, what
Yeah.
did you think about her breaking down in the scene? What do you think about again the way they addressed the place that they stayed at? And are we leading to that maybe they actually did attempt a relationship that just didn't work out?
Yeah, it definitely led me to believe that they attempted a relationship. It's just I don't know because we're taking place in the present. Like
Yeah.
Howard just got married supposedly or whatever happened between
No, no,
there.
no, 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 no. This was in the future.
No. I'm
When they
saying
go back,
that before that is
yeah.
when they probably started or initiated a relationship. Somewhere in between that
But I'm
time.
about to say, yeah, because it's a 10-year gap between what's in the present and the
Yeah.
future. So there's no telling what happened in that gap. of
Yeah.
time between them two.
But to me, I think what's going on in Poe's man. I mean, I think she definitely is. She's emotionally compromised,
Yeah.
because she built her whole life off of this. She's let go of relationships off of this, and all to understand. Not only is the system corrupt, but it is tracking her down to
Hmm.
look at her as a suspect, which is crazy. So it literally has betrayed her. The system has literally betrayed her. So I think that that hurts her. But if you look at the progression that through all this sacrifice, she's let go of certain relationships. And even she
Yeah.
even said, like, I forsake my own best friend's relationship because of this.
Hmm.
And I think she's really lonely. I really do think, like, I mean, she's not maintaining any relationships. She even asked her, like, how many relationships you been in? She's like, I've tried. She said some kind of sentiment like, you don't want to sit there and just try with somebody that you know for a fact is not the person you want to be with. That's more lonely. And so I think that she was sitting in that bed, she was low-key lonely, and she wasn't going to sit there and ask for companionship. And Our knows her enough to cutter her. And it was kind of
Yeah.
like, I get it, but is somebody cheating here? Like, I don't know what's going on. Somebody cheating. But yeah, yeah.
I
Girls is
mean,
more.
hey, that's the
She
hey,
depressed, lonely.
and that's the best way to end this episode of not fully understanding where that relationship is. So, your final thoughts on Class of '09, episode 3. Thank you for not driving, which is a weird name, a great funny title. Say thank you for not driving.
Right. It's a play on words. Nah, this is a dope episode. It was. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Tails' story is so interesting. Like it's
Hmm.
not just action packed. It's intense. Like if he was the front person, like I still would be engaged. But because of a lot of the mystery between Our and Poet and the other part of the espionage side of the FBI, like that's just the icing on the cake. I think the thing I'm feeling now is like I want this to continue, but I know it's a limited run series.
Yeah,
I'm getting that feeling in my heart, like, dang, we this is about to end, and I don't want it to end.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you can catch our review right after the episode airs on Hulu. So right after the episode ends, you catch our review on it and let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about this relationship between Our and Poet and exactly where this is going. Let us know what you think about Teo. Is Teo the actual future villain here? Or is it something with this system that happens after everything in the present happens that leads Teo down this road? Again, check out this review. Any other content we got? This has been another JVS television review. Peace, people.
Later, y'all.